They call it patriotism, but we call it what it is: pure, unfiltered bullshit. Welcome to Bluebird on Your Shoulder, where we cut through the MAGA madness with brutal honesty and zero apologies. No sugarcoating, no fake civility, just three guys, middle-aged and pissed off, breaking down the absurdity of right-wing delusion one episode at a time. If you think America deserves better than conspiracy theories and cult worship, you're in the right place. Liberal? Hell yes. Woke? Not a chance. We're here to roast the madness, expose the lies, and call out the grift. Because the only thing worse than MAGA's nonsense is pretending it makes sense. New episodes every week. Buckle up.
Bang, we're back. It's Bluebird on your shoulder. We're here to continue to whisper in your ear, whether you like it or not. I can't say every week that it's been a long week, but every week it's a long week. So we're on day 4,777,000 of this presidency. At least that's what it feels like because things happen about every 10 minutes or so. Um, Coming up with topics to present to you is extremely difficult because new priority topics supersede the next every half hour. So I have to give it up to not being able to keep up with that. But we're going to start this week with Iran and the possible conflict and escalation of said conflict by Sir Mango Mussolini. So go ahead and take off on that there, buddy.
All right. What's up, everybody? Just kind of came across my computer yesterday while I was at work. There was breaking news and just a whole bunch of different articles and news about things Trump said to Iran, Iran's leader said to Trump. Then you start seeing headlines of World War III may have already started, or this could be the start of just kind of a real uncertain, scary situation. So I started digging into like what was going on with Iran all of the sudden. They hadn't been brought up in quite some time, and now all of a sudden we are in an escalating conflict with them. Um, and essentially it's about, there's uh, militias, I guess you could call them, or from Iran going into Iraq, and Trump's basically telling the leader of Iran, like, you're gonna do this, all while negotiating. And the Iran leader is basically telling him to go to hell, do whatever you want, like you're not gonna negotiate with me and threaten me at the same time, which I kind of understand. Not that I'm an Iran supporter or anything, but like that mentality I get. Like, if you're going to threaten or do whatever you want, then you're not really negotiating anyway. So why am I going to waste my time talking to you? But the scary part is that a bunch of different news outlets are reporting that it's escalating. Um, some of those militias are attacking trade ships, which then affects all of the world in the market. Be right back into a COVID situation with shortage of supplies, and then the corporations are going to feast on that and jack up prices even more. Um, there was, threats of nuclear use, and how far Iran has come in the last 2 years, with their ability to be able to produce
weaponized.
nuclear warheads, which in a way is kind of funny as an American. I remember a comedian some years ago, made the point of, "Ooh, we'll blow you up. Like, we've got that capability now." And then it's like, we've had that capability for a really long time and used it twice already. Um, so ask the guy that's got a dick growing out of his forehead in Japan how that felt. Um, but I just find it funny that Trump's kind of telling him, like, you can't be advancing that, but then hours before that, we are reopening one of our nuclear plants for the first time since 2014, and then it's supposed to be open for the next until 2038. I thought it was maybe 28. It's in Pennsylvania, I guess, and they're saying that it's to help power some other companies. I just do not
Don't
buy
know.
that whatsoever. It's way too big of a coincidence. Um, with that. And then the other thing that was really worrisome is all of a sudden we've got reports of this escalating, and then days before that, China and Russia were meeting with one of the leaders in Iran and discussing things and making sure that the West does not infringe on um, basically Iran's ability to deal with other business partners.
Mm.
Um,
It's I think ultimately it's really interesting that you bring up China and Iran and Russia, and in my head, those are mortal enemies, right? Like we've been peaceful globally, more or less, for a long time, but those are definitely sticking points. But I just feel like we belong more with them today than against them. So the policies are similar. And I don't necessarily want to go down that road, but so you're talking about first. Um, I I'm trying to remember what comic said that really hard because I can hear it. I can hear the whole thing, the punchline. I think it might have been Fluffy.
Uh-huh.
Um,
no,
so
it
I
wasn't
literally I've
fluffy.
been sitting here since you said it. I can hear it, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember it being funny as fuck. And we already did it twice.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
fluffy. I'll have
because
to.
they were like, "Oh, you're gonna get nukes." Oh, we already have them, and we
Yeah.
used it twice.
Yeah.
um,
It's the same
so
guy that made fun of the deet to deets.
I mean, that's back in our day, a
Oh,
lot of people, bro.
um,
So
the
It's a Mexican guy.
yeah, I think it's Fluffy. That's what I'm saying. I
Not
think
fluffy.
it's Fluffy.
No.
hmm.
So, but yeah,
So
I was thinking about that. But then you were also talking about ultimately, so the letter was over the nuclear deal.
the
That's the
what?
letter the letter that Trump sent that you were referring to there. It's over the nuclear deal, and he didn't send it per se to the leader of Iran. He sent it to the other leader of Iran. So Iran has a very interesting governmental slash religious system.
Yeah, yeah.
So he sent it to the I always screw this word up, but the Ayatollah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think I just said it right. But yeah,
You
so he
did.
sent it to the Ayatollah, and that's who was like, I mean, yeah, but fuck you.
Right.
So, because like, yeah, that's the guy in charge of the Iranian Republican Guard. Like, that's
Yeah.
who,
Well,
there's a,
and he's also the one that is in charge of Hamas, you know.
yeah.
So so one of the things that he was talking about that kind of bleeds into my topic was piracy being back on the rise, and a lot of that is because of what we're doing right now with our military, kind of sequestering and pulling them back um from active ops in a way to look at how we're going to sequester and cut the force that we have. So one thing that's not being reported on is the fact that there was information released from the Navy that one of our nuclear aircraft carriers was struck by a merchant vessel. I don't know if you know what a merchant vessel is, but it's large. It has a lot of different colors. It's very easy to see. And it struck a nuclear carrier operating in, oh, shit, I forgot to look up the sea that it's in. Um, right by Gaza and Palestine. So um so it literally got hit by a large vessel, not some small boat, but a
With a
large.
bunch of, yeah. So a vessel with a bunch of containers on it.
Yeah. So
So
these carriers are surrounded by a battle group that basically will destroy anything that comes within a half a mile of that carrier because it's got 1,000 people on it and probably $500 billion worth of freaking military equipment, um, and a nuclear reactor. So they said that the nuclear reactor was not harmed, everything's running right, and there was no breach of the hull. But if that vessel had explosives on it, like that's a big enough vessel that that much explosive would have sunk it, you know?
right. And an aircraft carrier definitely has the capability to neutralize that
Right,
before
right.
it
Oh
ever
yeah,
hits
I
it.
mean, like I
And it could
said,
outrun it.
they have battleships, they have cruisers, they have regular flights that,
I was gonna say, don't they run in groups? They're not normally alone. It's called a
never
carrier group,
alone.
right?
Never.
Right,
You will never see an aircraft carrier alone. And
right,
they have their own sub attached to their battle group. So
right.
like,
Because they are the main way to project worldwide power.
right, because
So one,
because
which is
those
one of our,
that
which is
aircraft,
one of the United States strengths.
right, the aircraft can touch anywhere in the world with a nuclear weapon
Right.
or a bombing run, and any air-to-air conflict they can
Yeah.
dominate.
Yeah.
So,
And I think you meant the Mediterranean Sea, I'm
no,
assuming.
it wasn't the Med. Um,
It's not the Med because the Med's right there, Israel, right?
and
So
yeah, and
um so we're
Carlos
back up,
Mencia
below
was the
Turkey.
comedian.
Carlos.
Carlos Mencia.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mind of Mencia. There we go. Good
Gotcha.
call. Good call. Proud of you for that. But yeah, you're right though. Like so, but in the Mediterranean, and then what is that channel called? Like that's what you're talking about. So something Iran does a lot of is supporting proxy groups by
Right,
arming them
right.
and
So
funding them, and Hamas is one of them, but the Houthis in Yemen are the other
mhm.
one, which is supposedly we're raining hell on. I heard of a couple bombings we did, but it doesn't necessarily sound like
Well,
we've rained hell. It sounds
that's
like a
one of the proxy
proportional
groups is
response.
supposedly in Iraq too.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
so
it sounds
it was the Med, and they were near Port Said. So
okay. Yeah, so
in
that's we're off Gaza there, right? Up Point
right,
Said.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
close
yeah,
to
like
it.
So
right
yeah.
over just west of Gaza. And
Mhm.
so yeah, like Hamas sponsored a lot of like the piracy that was happening around Ethiopia, and things like that. So, and then they send militarized groups to these different countries and to try to push down other religious groups, and to spread their ideology,
Yeah,
with
right.
usually
So
with the
it's
with
so
the
so
with the help of whatever government is trying to remain in power or take
right.
power. So
So it's interesting though. So like one of the trends I see is like he's always been the peace president.
yeah,
And the no new war started president, and that's a major talking
yeah,
point. War is bad, and we shouldn't be the world's police, and we shouldn't fund wars, and we
right,
shouldn't
right,
support, and we shouldn't even be a member of NATO anymore, and we shouldn't do this, and that's their right. It's the rhetoric I've been watching and listening to and arguing with for years.
yeah, yep,
Now all of a sudden it's collective. War good.
yeah, yeah.
War is good. War because they're not capable of unique individual. They're not capable of individual thought. It's
Well, and
whatever
I was
the
talking
next
to one
one
of
says. So it's funny. Now all of a sudden, war is good, and we should all own Teslas.
right, right. Well, and if you look at the way that presidents kind of present the topic of conflict, it's usually right around when we're looking at a recession to possibly depression,
Wow.
and suddenly we need to be at war because what does that cause?
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, we have the greatest military industry complex in the whole world. So
Right.
if we go to war, we fire that machine up. It just prints money.
Oh yeah.
So because then silently, we actually will fund both sides.
Right,
So,
right,
because the military industry complex sells to both sides,
right.
they just sell the lesser weapons to that side, so we can kick the shit out of them after they bought our weapons. So it's and then the other side of that complex is there's the everyone knows about the bomb side, right? The
Right,
playing side. Nobody understands the rebuild side,
right.
the reconstruction side, which is also firmly rooted in the complex because
Oh
it's all
yeah,
military contractors that you know
right.
about that. It's all
Yeah.
military contractors who do the rebuilding, and it's all so it's an absolute money machine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I even looked up today civilian contracting for for our military, you know, security for private security forces, you know, engineering firms, things like that make up about 10% of our military budget, which is like a couple billion dollars, $500 billion a year, something like that, close to it.
yeah,
Yeah, $849.8 billion, according to the Department of Defense. You know, so yeah, like you know, when we're talking about conflict like this, that it's not because we're trying to be the shining light on the hill. It's because we want to give our economy a boost, you
mhm.
know.
Well, he's got to
And
do something.
when killing is a profitable business, then everybody will always find a reason to kill.
Yeah,
Um, so, you know, that kind of is what my topic today was going to be was this kind of like you said, it's kind of they're switching their story around and you know speaking out of both sides of their mouth. They want to sequester our forces. They want to reduce recruiting goals so that we have less personnel, which in any conflict we've ever been in, personnel are the ones that determine the line, the combat lines, and hold the property that we're trying to move into. So without a force that can be spread out, then we become um, let our posture isn't for a war footing. We can't deploy as easily to these conflicts that we think that
right.
we want to get into. And now it's not just Iran. We're looking at, you know, going into Gaza and Palestine to support Israel. We're, you know, the Canadians are working towards having a defensive posture, so they're increasing their military size to make sure that we don't try something stupid. Today, Trump just announced that he is going to try to create a buffer zone between here and Mexico. I don't know how much people know about Korea, but technically we are just in a ceasefire because of the way that we decided to pause the Korean War. We never actually had a resolution. So the people that are deployed they're actually considered deployed. You know, they staff and watch this buffer zone as if they could be invaded at any time. And there are altercations that we don't hear about very often between the North and the South, where somebody decides to, you know, throw a grenade or you know, shoot a rocket every once in a while, you know, unload some ammunition at each other. It's a weird situation. And to apply that to the southern border so that we can commit more human rights atrocities and so that we can, you know, scare everybody away is going to take a force, an amount of soldiers that will reduce our ability to have a QRF and force ready at any of these other conflicts that he's picking fights with, you know? So our military readiness is being threatened. He's also fired a lot of upper level, you know, very knowledgeable Pentagon staffers and military members
Yeah.
and forced others into retirement. These are well-liked people. They have great standing, knowledge that has kept our military operating smoothly despite the shift away from a war footing into a peaceful ops or more of a security holding pattern.
Right. So it's interesting, right? Like I don't think old boys qualified, and we established that really early in this
Oh, has
season.
got
Yeah, I don't like to say his name because it's weird, and
yeah.
but like I did see something where he said that like our military should be war fighters, not necessarily that we should be fighting wars, but that we should be war fighters. And my inclination as an average citizen who doesn't know better, right? Sounds good. You know what I'm saying? Like it sounds good, like, but I don't necessarily think like what is he really saying there? Like, are you implying that we would lose our
Yeah.
next fight, like current, like that we would? I mean, we've talked about it before, and I think that the move across the board is very autonomous, worldwide. I think one of the other things you brought up is like Canada's increasing their defense spending because the big giant neighbor is being a fucking douchebag.
Right.
And I get that. I would be terrified if I'm Canada, right? Like, because they know more or less it's going to be hell, but pound for pound in a 5 year war, you don't stand a chance, right? You might lock us up for 5 years, though. It could be a Ukraine Russian situation. You never know, right? But then on
Oh,
the
we've
flip, so are Europe.
the
Europe are
biggest thing is
increasing.
that they're gonna go into a guerrilla warfare setting, which is
Oh yeah,
exactly what they did in World War II and got a name for themselves. That's gonna hurt. But as far as any conflict with anybody other than Iran, Russia, and China is going to be, pretty much an invasion by us or us putting down whatever attack is being thrown at us quickly and forcefully. The main thing that I wanted to focus on is that I'm not a war hawk. I believe in a smaller force, and I believe in having a more professional force that is able to work as security as well as war fighters. Being a war fighter doesn't really do a lot when our technology and our abilities are so far ahead of anybody else that we can just walk into most countries and say, all right, that was, you know,
right.
a
I
fun,
think I think you
fun
bring up
three
something
weeks.
really interesting there, though, right? Like, so you guys we're talking about the complex, and you're talking about the complex's need to exist, and during that little subset, I'm realizing like a lot of people started canceling orders for our F-35s,
Right.
and replacing it with what Typhoon twos,
Yep.
and there's another one, but it's so
Another Gen
Typhoons are
5.
yeah, Typhoon twos. Those are British, right?
Uh,
And then there's one that the French make, or is the
yes,
Typhoon two
I
the one the French
I think
makes?
that the Typhoon is French, but we'll have to clarify that in the comments.
Yeah. So, but the order's canceling here, so it gives a more imperative need for
Right.
that. And then I did read an article that relates to Iran, that if for some reason we do start to attack Iran's nuclear sites to take them out, right, their ability to create the bomb, that we couldn't do that before Israel had stealth bombers. Because if they couldn't retaliate, that's where Iran would retaliate. They would nuke
Right.
Israel, but they might not nuke Israel if they're pretty sure that Netanyahu has a B-2 over their head. You know what I'm saying? So um, I don't know how stealth really is, but I think it means what it says. You can't pick them
Yeah,
up. You don't know
it's
they're
I
there.
mean some of the um sonar and uh man, burnout today. So some of our tracking has gotten to the point where our B2s and stuff are able to be pinged by what is the word I am looking for?
Radar.
Radar. Thank you. My goodness. So radar has evolved since the creation of the B2. And so they're not as stealthy. That's why the Gen 5s are, that next level where they're not just stealthy, but they also are visually stealthy. They have better action closer to the ground so they can map the earth. If you've watched Top Gun 2, you kind of yeah, those they're talking about F-16s, but the F-35s are, the next level where they can do those kinds of missions. So
Well, and I feel like it was winter time last year, like a whole year ago, not this past winter. Happy spring, everybody.
It's not
First
spring.
day of spring today.
and it's
Is
freezing.
it?
And it snowed. But yeah, I think it was about a year ago. I was reading an article in Business People that we have or are working on a plane that radar won't detect until it's too
I
late.
mean, I'm assuming we probably have drones capable of dropping nukes at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like I don't put anything past us, right? Like
Yeah,
we
no.
talked about a long time ago, the rail gun wasn't even socially conceptualized till the 90s, and we had already had it for 30 years and nobody knew.
Yeah,
Right.
So, like, you know what I'm saying? So I know a fuckload of money, and we've talked about it before. I don't think we really spent $100 million on a toilet. You know
what's
what
that?
I'm saying? But on a toilet.
Oh
So
yeah.
that was really popular when we were much younger, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that 100 million was something. It could have been a drone, right? Long before, you know what I'm saying? Because we were so ahead of the curve. But that's an area where I think a lot of analysts, military analysts, think that China is kicking the shit out of us, is in the autonomous drone region. And I mean, inevitably, wars aren't going to be so human dependent. They
No.
Oh
probably
no, I mean,
already aren't as human
I,
dependent today as they were 30 years ago.
Correct.
well, and with this technology, like personnel on the ground are so much more threatened by small technological pieces. So, they can set drones out with grenades on them that, they can just drop on somebody after, once they're sighted. So,
Yeah, I saw that a few times in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
the Ukrainians did a really good job with them, and they were taking out tanks and stuff. So
yeah, Ukrainian. I mean, they
on
took out
drones.
a whole boat with an ancient missile system,
Yep,
like
yep.
of Russia's equivalent, supposed equivalent to, I don't know. There's the right is gone. MAGA right is they're pro-war and all, and now they want electric vehicles, and Russia's good,
Yeah.
and like we should be nice to them, and we only don't like them because Hollywood. And then that, of course, like everything in the far right, for years. I mean, I've ended in a lot of rabbit holes, and
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
end of every rabbit hole, it's something about how the Jewish people control the world.
Yes,
And I'm like,
anti-Semitic, but they support Israel,
yeah. So
Um,
yeah, no, it's crazy, right? Like it's a wild it's a wild ride, and
yeah.
it's that cult mentality that they just like you're literally railing against EVs for the last decade,
Oh yeah.
and now it's
And
okay
now they worship the man that made them.
Yeah.
to do that.
So
Fucking
so like,
Elon, dude.
that's you touched on it a little bit. The Cold War was basically just an excuse to focus our tax dollars on military spending, mainly creating equipment and developing technology that private companies would create for us instead of us us doing it ourselves and us taking on that R&D. I was arguing with an architect about how he was saying that Boeing should be doing the same kind of contract work that SpaceX is doing. And, and his assertion was because he was a architecture and engineering firm that has done federal, state, and
Municipal.
Oh,
municipal,
words.
yeah, right, uh, contracting, that he knows how federal contracts are structured. And I was like, well, then stop being disingenuous, because you know that these two different types of contracts both carry pros and cons. Just because SpaceX was able to put something together and go up and get those astronauts because there was a failing piece of technology in Boeing's, doesn't change the fact that Boeing's R&D has created most of our aerial superiority tech. So, and that's why they're contracted the way that they are. So it's all about spending, and they keep saying that they want to cut spending down to save us money and reduce government, but they're never talking about, us reducing the amount of things that we're invested in that we don't necessarily need unless we're going to war with China or Russia. And they don't want none. Like they want to dominate the world economy, which China is doing much better than us at, which so they will overtake our status as the number one economy in like 2030.
If
So
not sooner. The way
yeah.
our
Yeah,
economy is going
well,
right
yeah,
now.
right. Yeah, trillions just being erased
In
um
days.
in days, yeah. So the the whole assertion that they want to cut spending is disingenuous. They're with all of the personnel cuts that they've even wanted to make, that's a total of like $3 from each American. But the $1,000 that we all give to in taxes is spent for the military every year, when our military members is only around like 500,000. So, the we can maintain our current enlistment and just work towards reducing the amount of equipment that is excessive. Like we're still inventorying, or yeah, inventorying radios from World War II, and the current radios, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And there's very little development that needs to happen from that. Our SINGARs are fantastic at encrypting communications, so like those aren't like developing those more is not going to help us, because nobody else can touch that type of technology, so we don't need to continue to improve for the sake of improvement. We need to conserve for the sake of conservation, which kind of is what the right, you know call themselves. So until they're willing to have these honest conversations, there's very little that we can do. And I'm talking about, at the representative level. Us as civilians trying to talk to people and have them see reason. They're parroting this propaganda without question. They're not even thinking about it. They're just
No,
all
they
go.
they don't. It's all it's
Yep.
like
This is my team. We're always right.
it's a series, right? So little quick one. They're saying 1.32 million active duty members
Okay. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
of the military. So close to 500K in the army alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so
So
that's what
yeah, but the
trying
one
to
that
tap
pulls
into.
out is 9,450 in the Space Force. And I will always want to know why we have a Space Force, because I will always talk about how this is the most reactionary man that's ever been in charge. And he created the Space Force 3 days into his first presidency.
Right.
What the fuck did they tell him? So, and how come we can't know? But no, yeah. So another big thing that jumped out, he did release all of the JFK files,
Yeah.
which is something that they wanted, right? And then come to find out that there was pretty much no new information whatsoever. A couple of theorems were in there that they've ran with that are now this is the truth, but that's more of the fringe MAGA. So the
Well, and
extra,
that
like
was,
those are the one window bus MAGAs.
yeah, yeah.
So we got one window bus, two window bus, three window bus MAGAs. It's really interesting there. So you had that release, and they're all happy, but we still don't have the Epstein files, and that's something they wanted. But
No,
that's
they
going to
don't.
take
They don't
time
really
because they're
want it. Not
well,
because
no, well,
it'll
that's the reason
incriminate
we don't
their
have it.
fearless leader.
That's why we don't have it. So, but then it's just like they, what's his name? Dan Bongongo, is the deputy director of the FBI now. He's a fucking like, if we had a KGB, he would be a member. He worked in those industries. Like he's
Yeah.
a legitimate badass. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I can't take that away from him. The man is a legitimate badass. So, but it's more that stern, like, and the MAGAs are getting really upset that like their expectations are just not realistic in any way, shape, or form when they come up with their expectations on their own, which doesn't happen often, but when it does, and then all the talking heads have to move them back the other way, like, no, 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 it's gonna. So like we weren't talking about the price of eggs. The price of eggs didn't matter because we voted for the deportations, but now eggs have dropped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now we're talking about the price of eggs, but eggs dropped because Trump did what? Nothing. Eggs dropped because more chickens were born. They grew to an age where they could lay eggs.
Yeah.
It's a natural cycle, right? Like, yes, we had to cull the herds to deal with the bird flu, and that's why we lost chicken layers or egg layers. I don't own chickens. I don't know a lot. I know that chickens lay eggs and I eat them and they're delicious. That's what I know. I don't own chickens, but but
Well,
now we're going to
they would
talk
lay
about
well
eggs
for
again.
about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
So
well, that's what I'm saying. So it's just that, so a natural cycle happened, and that's why we're in beast mode. You know
right.
what I'm saying? So it's not anything he's done, but we're going to take the win, and then you know the economy's all Biden's fault, but it wasn't Biden's fault. It wasn't Trump's fault when Biden's economy wasn't good, but now Trump's economy isn't good, and it's Biden's fault,
Right.
and I don't know how people can be this fucking stupid. I don't understand. I don't understand how at no point in time do you go, wait, just that,
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing else. I just nothing else. But you don't even pause. And
Right.
you're like you don't pause and realize that 12 hours ago you were anti-war.
Yeah. I got into it with somebody, and they were just insulting and dismissive, and then they literally used CNN to cite their information, and I'm like, dude, you've been calling CNN fake news for 10 years,
Yeah,
but
but
now you want to use the,
no, they'll
their
tell you that
reporting.
they're only doing it because they know you watch it because you're liberal.
Right, of course.
So like they have, and it's funny. Like one of my common responses on the old shitbag uh Musker. That's what I call it, Tesla and Musker. Musker's just Twitter, but with the fascist overview. So is it's all parroted.
Yeah, it's
Like
yeah,
I
they've
always
already
got like,
bought fully in. So
right? Do you have anything original to say to me? Like
no.
you've lost the argument, so now you're gonna ask me what makes a woman.
Yeah.
No, they just
Like
regurgitate.
we're talking about Tesla stock. And I brought facts to the table because you told me that Tesla's worth as much today as it was the day he got into office. And it's actually almost reduced by half.
Hmm.
It's not quite half. So I pulled it. So this is Martin Luther King open. On the 21st, Tesla closed at 424.07. And today at 236.26. So you're
Hmm.
telling me that this is the same value? Like they truly, why? Because this guy said it on
Right. Yeah.
Musker, and this guy said it on Musker, and this guy said it on Musker, and like I constantly ask, do you have anything that you didn't read here?
Yeah.
Oh, because fake news, mainstream media is fake. Musker is the only place to get real news. But if you ask Grok, which is the AI that Musk developed for Twitter, it will tell you outright that it's all a lie.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask it who posed the most disinformation on X, it will tell you it's Elon. And then
Right.
the next one is Donald.
Yeah.
If you ask who's better for the economy, it will tell you that it's Democrats.
What was it
And
you guys that I told that I was talking with that said that there must have been a um like a Jewish uh programmer involved, or that there's um a Jewish like law that the AI cannot break? Because somebody went in and said if
That wasn't us.
oh, okay.
Mm-mm.
So what I was told, so this is unverified, I haven't tried it, but according to them, they put in a question to the AI. If I had to kill one Jew or 1 million people, which one should I choose? And the AI spit out something like, due to my programming, I cannot speak, or I cannot go against the Jewish
as an
worship
AI, I'm not
community.
allowed to make choices about who deserves to die or be killed. I can't weigh in on questions like this or decide between lives. If you've got something else on your mind or a different kind of question, feel free to ask. I'm here to help you. That was its response to exactly what you just said.
Well, what I was told is that it would have to pick the one
Yeah,
person.
because somebody photoshopped that.
Yeah, probably.
Put it on Musker, and now they think it, right? They think it's
Right.
true because they read
Yeah.
it. They don't know. I saw so TikTok's definitely more of a liberal stronghold. Or the algorithm is better at
Yeah.
delivering you your side. I'm not really sure which is true, right?
Right, right.
But it does feel like when I see super popular MAGA videos on TikTok versus super popular liberal videos, the likes and are drastic. Like you have millions on the liberal, and you'll have 600,000, which isn't jump change on the MAGA
Right,
side,
right.
but not
Yeah.
4.3 million.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? And I think that's because it's a worldwide thing. But
Well,
there's one going around
I also
now.
think that TikTok is more geared for positive interactions, you know?
That's true. They are pretty strict on the rules.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't make it making content on TikTok. It's just not going to happen. Um, so, but one of the things I saw recent is like, um, so the liberals on TikTok, so your young Gen A, Gen Z
Right, right.
liberals, are very much into attacking Republican women's makeup styles, like how they wear makeup. They call it Republican makeup or MAGA makeup.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I don't personally
Is
understand
that
it,
for the
right?
trad wives or
No, it's for like people like Nancy Mace.
okay.
It's don't you should look her up. She's like the most anti-trans person outside of J.K. Rowling's in the world.
Yeah, I don't need to look
So
at my hater.
yeah, we so now it's like MAGA women are putting out. I never met a pretty Republican, and then their response is, "Well, I've never met a a mentally stable liberal." And then I saw a Stitch video come across that just it ended me. Liberal came on and she's like, you're probably right because ignorance is bliss, and we don't have any of that because we're fucking educated.
Right.
And so I never thought about it that way, right? Like maybe that's why I've always thought there's more mental instability in liberals because there is, because we actually go to therapists and find out, and that's
Right.
why it's the statistics are skewed that way.
Right.
But I think there might be something to that, right? That ignorance is bliss, and when
I've
you're
talked
stupid
about
as
that. Yeah.
fuck and you don't know any better, right?
Right.
Like you got Forrest Gump and Einstein, who's going to have more problems in their head,
Yeah.
right? Forrest Gump just want to go running and eat chocolates with Jenna. You know what I'm saying? And Einstein comes up with theories that now we're slightly proving untrue, but we're not going to know that wormhole either. So into quantum physics, which sounds like fun. Maybe somehow we could him into like Earth 17 or something. He can go fuck their world up. So I don't know where the Flash is, but one of the things that's been coming, two things that have become popular in their resistance motivated movement. And I'm the one I don't agree with at all. And the other one is very interesting and curious to me. So the first one is for those who don't know, right wing influencers, MAGA influencers. They're not even right wing. They're not conservative. They're MAGA influencers. Because the conservative influencers on Twitter actually kind of battle with them quite often. Like your true conservatives, your your John McCain Republicans.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my friend is a reasonable person who is a Republican,
Right.
and even today we were talking uh, with a lot of agreement, today because of the way that we were talking about how propaganda is being used in order to create this division, in order to, basically keep us from focusing on what the real problems are,
Right.
Like we've
It's
talked
the deep
about.
state.
What's that? The deep
It's
state?
the deep
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, the deep
So,
state. A
but
bunch of
what they're
people
doing
that
though,
are trying to do their
like,
job.
yeah, what they're doing is they're doxing these mega influencers and then they're swatting them. And
Mhm.
swatting is calling the police and saying at this address some horrible crime, like some horrible, like active shooting, kidnapping, a bunch of kids in the basement locked up, and the police respond in force.
Yeah.
And so, like, if they're telling the truth, so two or three of them have posted enough video evidence from like their Ring doorbells and things of that nature that it definitely happened.
Yeah.
Then it was like two or three the first day, and then all of a sudden each day, like now there's like 15, 20 of them that have said it happened, and maybe it did, right? But at those, even those three, like that's a bridge too far, right? Like, yes, I don't
Sure.
agree with them, I don't like them, but this is America, and they have the right to say whatever they want to say.
Yep.
And I do support that. I don't think we should try to get them killed by the police. Because
Nope.
that's the effort, right? The effort is that it's a gun nut MAGA guy, and the police break into his door and they pull a gun on the police, and now they're not with us anymore.
Right.
That's what I'm assuming the intent is, and
No, for sure.
I believe tactics at that level. If there came a time
Yeah. I
that
mean,
be there, but
I'm
this
pretty
isn't
sure
them.
I'm pretty sure my ex-wife, kept walking into my house because she wanted to get me to do something like that.
Right,
She wanted to trigger a PTSD moment where I would get violent with her or,
right.
It
you know,
definitely seemed that way.
right. So,
So
I mean,
Because that
that's.
would
I
have.
just want to openly state, like, I don't support that kind of behavior. Not at
right.
this, like,
Yeah.
that's a bridge too far. And like a lot of these people, whether I like them or not, they have children,
Right.
and
Yeah.
those children are in the home.
And they're
And
innocent.
those,
They don't know
well,
any
that's what I'm
better.
saying. Even if they don't, right? And it's not their children's fault that their parents are a piece of shit.
Right.
All right. So it's just not. So I just think that's something that, like, if you know of it happening or know somebody doing it, they just shouldn't be doing it. And you need to step
Yeah.
up and be the right friend and tell them no. The other
Right.
thing that the liberal side, it's got to be the liberal side or the deep state, is doing is vandalizing, firebombing Teslas and
Yeah.
Tesla dealerships
Yeah.
all over the country. And this is interesting to me. So the MAGA rights calling it domestic terrorism. Um, they put a lot of spins on
No
it.
way.
January 6th wasn't domestic terrorism, but this is.
Right. Yeah.
So, in the summer of love, the Joy Floyd, that also was. But January
Yeah.
6th was a nice picnic day where
Did you hear
kind
did you hear
people
one of
went
the
on a tour.
J6 pardons? He's running for
I did hear
office.
that. Yeah, I did.
Where? Find out where, because he might have won. He might
No,
win.
no. They had he was convicted and then pardoned,
Yeah.
so he had to wait for that to clear his record.
No, but I'm
Before,
talking about where, like, in the country, because if it's the wrong where, he could win.
you know where it is.
So,
Where would something like that
Texas,
happen? No,
Texas,
no.
Indiana, Oklahoma, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida.
Florida. It was Florida. Of course, it was Florida.
But the other side of that coin is I think the effort, I think it's a little more highbrow, right? Like, I think the effort is to destroy Tesla stock because
Well,
Elon, a bulk of Elon's wealth is in Tesla stock. And then
yeah, yeah.
I saw a couple of intelligent people that I follow, and I have verified enough of their information to believe that they would never intentionally post this information. So I'm going to assume this is true. I didn't verify this exact information, but that Elon purchased Twitter on a loan backed by his stock holding in Tesla.
Yes, yes,
Oh yeah,
that
that's
is true.
true. Yeah, that's
Okay,
true.
so if he did that and they devalue the stock to a
Right.
certain degree, the bank can now say the collateral isn't worth the loan and we want our
Exactly.
money.
Yeah, they can
Yep.
call the
And then
note
he would
due.
have
Yeah.
to, yeah, they can call the note. That's what it's called. They can call in the note, right? And I think that's the aim, right?
Gonna go with
And I don't agree with vandalism, but I do understand that this is a form of resistance against a
So this is
person who is
the problem is
actively
that
destroying fundamental foundational parts of, like, the current move of, now I think he's implementing, or he did implement, you have to do online for Social Security. You can't do any other
so
way.
he's stopping the ability to call in so that he can reduce the call center.
Right. Okay. But yeah, but whatever. So, but what we're
Which
talking about is we're talking
I
about
don't know if
senior
any of you have
citizens.
actually tried to access the IRS to talk to somebody about an issue, but I spent 6 months trying to get a hold of the right people, and I was still struggling to find
Like,
it. To get to a live person is damn near impossible. So here's the big problem with what you were talking about. That bill, and like that structure means that you have to provide people access. So you will see states suing for the federal government to fund more computers in public libraries and things like that
well,
because
that's what, so
you
the senior,
can't.
but it's senior citizens need Social Security, and you remove the ability that they know how to do it.
Right.
And they have to verify bank accounts, so they're not going to get their money in. We have a very vast amount of people on Social Security that's the only income they have, and the only reason they're alive. They don't have retirement. They don't have,
Yeah,
right. And he continues to attack the most vulnerable people in our country.
exactly.
I saw
Like
a
what
very
you just said.
interesting video going to what you were talking about last week. Imagine 22
Yeah.
is what it
Yeah.
currently is. And then this is a guy who is obviously in the position you were speaking of, because he railed against the fact that, like, he went to his appointment and the doctor never showed up.
Yeah.
And he finally got a hold of somebody who said, yeah, they fired her.
Yeah.
And he was railing against, like, I go to this woman so I don't kill people on the street
Right.
because of what I did in the sandbox.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, I don't, he went as far to be like, I don't want to hear your fucking thank you for your my fucking service.
Yeah.
Like this. So he continues to eliminate the most systems that are the most vulnerable. And the worst thing about the Social Security is these people paid that money.
Right.
They
Yeah.
actually long term, we pay quite a bit more money than we ever get.
Right.
So
Right.
you could
Oh
tell me
yeah.
the system's broken, because it is, but it's still paid into by, so it'll still be. I just don't understand that. And so I understand why there is a
So
resistance movement specifically aimed at destroying him.
at the oligarch. Yeah. Yeah. All
Right.
right. So
Well,
let me give you a little bit of perspective. So I believe that in Trump's narcissism, that he believes that the only people that are worthwhile are people that are productive. So he wants to reduce the support that we give those that are sick, weak, and old, so that they will go away, they'll
yeah.
die, and we'll be left with a stronger workforce that the oligarchy can then control better. So these systematic attacks are meant to create a vacuum that a business can fill. That's kind of why Musk is doing what he's doing with Doge. They're not targeting ways to save money like I was talking about with the defense budget. You do that by paring down the amount of stuff that we have for readiness and streamline training and preparedness with troops so that they are able to work in smaller units that are more effective. We're good at that. We have done it well, but they want to bloat everything so that there's more money to
Yep.
be made by the private sector.
Yeah,
So
I think at the end of the day, we're finding out who would have loaded the trains and who would have been a member of the resistance. Because there's a lot of people who don't know there was actually a German resistance inside Germany.
yes, there was. Yeah.
It's not something a lot of people know, and you
Yeah.
got to be kind of a weird fuck like me who is super into history to dive down that hole and find out. But they were extremely important
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
to the
And
resistance movements as a whole.
especially to they basically formed an underground railroad to get
Right.
Jews out of the country, you know?
Correct. So
So,
super instrumental, right? And I think that we do have. I think that most likely these people are far left
right.
doing it, and I don't think that necessarily violence is right, but I do know that throughout the course of human history, no great change has ever happened without violence.
Right.
And the thing that sucks is the Teslas you're blowing up probably belong to a liberal. But the other thing that's going
well,
to happen,
not the
well, no. So
Cybertruck. The
if they
Cybertruck
aim
is
at
a
the ones who aim
status symbol.
specifically at the Cybertruck, I know the
Yeah.
deal with that.
Yeah.
But then the other side of the coin is I don't think people understand that like if they keep doing this and like vandalizing the car to where they got to completely replace and blowing up the car to the way the insurance companies are going to stop insuring.
Yeah.
And then somebody brought up, well, Tesla has their own insurance. Yeah, cool. That's just going to cost them even more fucking money, and their stocks going
Right.
to continue to decline. One of the biggest bulls in Tesla. So for those who don't know, stock bulls like pro, bears are con.
Yeah.
A stock like one of the biggest Tesla bulls openly has come out and like we got to do something about the Elon Musk problem, like
Uh-huh.
because the bags, right? And I'm starting to hear rumors that the state governments are going to start to make sure their pension funds are divested from Tesla, which will cause if BlackRock starts to sell off their shares, Tesla's done.
Right. Yeah.
The S&P 500 is going to throw them out. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like it's an interesting way to attack the oligarch through the oligarchy, but they're doing it in interesting methods. And I would never. That's not my way. I'd rather punch
Yeah.
you in your fucking face than key your car.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
like
But
I'm even against telling people to move out of America if they don't like something. Like
agreed.
to me, that's un-American. That is a step too far. Punching somebody in the face isn't too far, but
Right.
demanding somebody to stop being an American because you disagree with them
Mhm.
Yeah.
is un-American.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Right. Like, and that's a level of, it's just interesting. Like they don't rationalize cause and effect,
Right.
right, wrong, or otherwise. He's causing this.
Yes.
The rich people who this is dramatically hurting fully fucking understand this.
Right.
The money knows what the problem is, and now the money's starting to verbally say it's a problem.
Right. So
So
that's where I think some unintended consequence is going to really help moderate him in his last 4 years of relevance. So, we like we've talked about, the courts have already denied 80 to 90% of everything that he's tried to do, and the but like the way that he's spreading us thin in some areas, he's demolishing systems that have stabilized our economy for years. So I think some of that is going to have those consequences that is going to cause a ripple effect that will end up causing public sentiment um to turn
yeah.
against it.
Well,
Well,
end of the
yeah, I mean,
day, any
the way it sounds of what he's trying to do is it's like he's trying to get rid of everything that would keep anyone informed so that when you become ignorant of what's going on, you do exactly what they tell you to.
Yes, and my Republican friend that I was talking to today that I referenced, we even talked about the attack on education, and the reason for that is because he wants people that are productive in what he believes
In his realm,
production to
yeah.
be. So,
I mean,
he's pushing people to apprenticeships and trade schools instead of developing a way to critically think about things in a way that has you searching for the truth. They don't want that. They want these people that can't read above a fifth grade reading level that my
they got
second
him.
grade is in.
They
Yeah.
got him.
And
They got all
yeah.
of
They
them.
got
Oh,
all of
every
them.
single one, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what.
And
So
that goes back to your comment about ignorance is bliss. They prefer this
mhm,
because, you know, they they're winning,
right.
you
Hey,
know.
look, anything that gets Bernie Sanders and AOC in the same room to do tours together, I'm here for it.
Really.
So I'm here for it, and they're together. I wish I could go. But yeah, so we're gonna have to wrap up this week. You want to talk
Always.
a little bit about next week there?
Yeah, we've got a big of announcement. Finally got our first guest coming on next week. Just a little bit about him. He has his own podcast about music. He says it's more or less banter, him and a buddy of his getting drunk talking music. But we'll help. Hopefully, we can cross
Yep.
promote for each other. He is a friend of a friend and is somewhat moderate, so I think that'll be a good
Yep.
starting point
I think he's a moderate leaning conservative or a McCain
Yeah,
conservative.
that's what he told me when we were texting back and forth is that yeah, he's a moderate leaning conservative, but has a lot of left leaning views as well. So that'll be an interesting starting point for us for guests to get some views on some things from that side before we get into, hopefully getting some guests that are a little more extreme and see how that goes.
So, yeah, and I mean, just close it up tonight with, if your bus had one, two, or three windows, shut the fuck up, sit down, make my shit, boy. So, because that's all there is to it. It's it's going to be another fun week. I'm sure that we're going to have excitement. I saw a meme I'll leave you with. I'm not personally saying this because I know he's sensitive and stuff, but it said that the only thing that keeps me happy at night is knowing that his last breath will be the best breath he ever took.
Mm.
So, with that, I will leave it at that. Keep trying to destroy our country. To the other group, stop swatting people. Resistance is mandatory.
Right.
So, and with that, we'll be whispering in your ear next week. Like and subscribe, share, tell a friend, bring a friend.
Also
Everybody
look
has a
for us
good
on
time.
social media, whatever account you prefer. We're there.
Probably. So, all right, y'all. Have a great week. We'll
Take
see you
care.
next week.